In the previous video, we have learned about unique and not null constraint and how to use them. We learned that unique constraint is allowing null and preventing duplicates, while the not null is preventing null but allowing duplicates to be inserted to that column. So they are working in reverse to each other. So what if we want to prevent null and prevent duplicates? Of course, we can use these two constraints together to get prevent null and prevent duplicates, but we have specific constraint for this purpose, which called primary key. So primary key is preventing nulls and preventing duplicates value to be inserted to the column. So in this video, we will talk about primary key, which is combination of unique and not null constraints, which restricts duplicates and null values to be inserted to a column. So let's see in action how to use primary key. Continuing from our previous example, we have this table which allows null value but prevent duplicate because we are using unique constraints. So let's drop the table first. The table has been removed. Now on the employee ID column, I will use unique and not null at the same time. So of course we can use more than one constraint on the same column. So let's create this table again. And let's try to insert this record to the column. As we see, we didn't specify any value for the employee ID, which means we are trying to insert null's value to that column. See what will happen. As we see, we have not null constraint fail on the employee ID because we have not null constraint, which is not allowing null's value. So now let's include the employee ID column in the insert into syntax and value for it, and let's run the insert into syntax again. We have one row added. Now let's run the same syntax with the same value in order to see it is accepting duplicates or not. As you see, the unique constraint is not allowing duplicates value to be inserted. Thankfully, we have one specific constraint, which is combination of the unique and not null constraint, which is called primary key. So let's see how to use primary key. First, let me drop the table, and then I will remove these two constraints and I will add the primary key. So this primary key is preventing duplicates value and also preventing to insert null values to the column employee ID. At the same time, primary key usually is auto increment, so it will auto increment the value of it. Let's create the table. Table has been created with the primary key constraint, and I will remove the employee ID and the ID value. So now let's run the insert into syntax. We have add one row because primary key is generating a number. So let's see what was the number. Is generated number 1. So number 1 is generated by the primary key. So if I run the insert into syntax again, another row has been added, and as you notice that employee ID has been automatically increased in the number to make sure duplicate values has not been inserted to the column. So the primary key is making sure that duplicates value and null's value are not inserted to the column. Also, primary key has other advantages, especially in the relational database, which we talk about them in the other lessons in this course.